beautiful, brisk morning. We do not have rain. We have a number of community activities going on all over the region. I already left 2 this morning. So what I'm excited about is that we have this many people who have concern and are being visual about process and procedure in the city of St. Louis. This is your Transportation and Commerce Committee. This committee has before it the responsibility of reviewing and working on projects like the airport as well as Metro, the Port Authority, and any forms of transportation that evolves within the city of St. Louis and or the region, because we also have input on regional projects as well. Today's information session, and it is an information session, so that you are not confused, it does not require a quorum of the committee because we are not taking a vote on anything. So for information, I could just be here by myself and share that with you and listen to the public. It is critical that we hear from you, absolutely critical. And I'm going to say this now in case I forget later on, and we want you to stay vigilant. Because even as elected officials, first of all, you elect people to represent you, and you expect that they are going to be extremely responsible in representing you, and that they will listen to you, and that they will be present for you to share information and concerns that you have. And so that's why we're having these public meetings. If for some reason we don't feel as though we've had enough input from the public, we will do another round because this is that important. We will also, in the very near future, set up an opportunity for you to go online and give certain types of information, because we're categorizing some of the things as we move through the process for you to keep it very clean and very simple so that you're working with us as we're moving through this process. Alderwoman Kara Spencer is not, where is Kara?
She's not here.
Oh, okay, because I know I didn't see when I came in.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So, Alderwoman, okay, so Alderwoman Green is going to represent Board Bill number 93 in the absence of Alderwoman Kara Spencer. So could you come forward? I know that most of the housekeeping things that I normally say, I'm going to skip them, but the one that's most important to me is that we are very respectful of each other today. I have a lot of background in dealing with adults in community organizing, but what I find is sometimes we forget our manners. There is nothing that we're going to discuss today that requires us to lose our tempers, say words that don't need to be said, and to listen, because that's how we're going to learn from each other. Go right ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the Transportation and Commerce Committee. Alderwoman Spencer sends her regards. She had a conflict this morning with her child, so I'm here instead. What we have before us today is Board Bill 93, a bill that would require a public vote before we as a city move forward with the privatization of St. Louis Lambert International Airport, our city's largest asset. In order for us to discuss why it is important for the public to vote on a matter such as this, we must first describe briefly what privatization is. In 1996, Congress, through the Airport Privatization Pilot Program, Section 149 of the Federal Aviation Reauthorization Act of 1996, participation, limited in part to major stakeholders, have different, if not contradictory, objectives and interests. In fact, only privatization process established under the APPP. One of those, Stewart International Airport in New York State, subsequently reverted to public ownership after going through this process. And Luis Marin International Airport in San Juan, Puerto Rico, is now the only airport with a private operator. As of last year, there were 3 applicants in the APP: Hendry County Everglades Airport in Clewiston, Florida, Westchester County Airport in White Plains, New York, and St. Louis Lambert International Airport in St. Louis, Missouri. The most historic airports in the U.S., or one of the most historic airports in the U.S., is St. Louis's Lambert Airport. In 1928, St. Louis city voters approved a $2 million bond. Because of this early use of tax dollars, a revenue sharing program was created whereby the city enjoys almost $7 million a year in direct revenue from Lambert. We are one of just 12 airports nationally that enjoy this revenue sharing agreement. And this revenue sharing agreement is in serious jeopardy if we privatize. So why would we put that $7 million a year at risk, and what is airport privatization? So privatization can take a couple of different forms. Shifting of at its core, it's a shifting of governmental functions, responsibilities, and sometimes ownership in whole or in part to the private sector. Many public airports privatize many aspects of the airport without handing over the full reins to a public entity. For example, we've seen service contracts. Many U.S. airports, including Lambert, outsource non-core operations to private firms that specialize in those functions. Examples can include landscaping, bus shuttles, concessions, things along those lines. Under full privatization, one of the most significant pieces is the use of sale or lease proceeds. Under non-privatization or partial privatization, the sale and or lease of properties for non-airport purposes are considered airport revenue and must be used for airport purposes. That's under non-privatization or partial privatization. How under full privatization, airports can request Department of Transportation approval for the sale or lease of properties to be considered for other purposes, including profits to the operator. And if it's profits to the operator, that doesn't necessarily mean profits to the city. St. Louis International Airport has an enormous amount of currently unused property around its facility. Other important considerations are that public operators are eligible for federal grants for major infrastructure improvements. Private operators under semi-privatization are eligible for these grants under certain conditions, but under full privatization, the private operator is eligible for grants, but at a lower federal share. This means that as a region, we could lose out on federal tax dollars. This also means that rates could go up, charges for airlines could go up, charges on passengers could go up. There's a whole plethora of things that could change as a result of privatization that aren't always good for the consumer. As I mentioned earlier, participation in the airport privatization pilot program has been very limited. Since its inception, only 12 airports have applied, and only 2 have completed the process. 1 has backed out, and the success of the San Juan Airport is really debatable. But most importantly, we need to put St. Louis back into the mainstream of the international economy. Our regional population and our regional economy has been stagnant for decades, basically my entire lifetime. We are sitting on an opportunity for a region to strategically reposition itself as a center for international aviation. And we are asking, should we privatize our airport? But this is the wrong question to be asking. Rather, we are asking a very short-term question right now of how we can make a quick buck for the city in order to satisfy some of our budgetary issues. But what we should be asking is how our region's aviation assets can be leveraged and how they can be used to maximize the growth of our regional economy. So far, the process of even considering privatization has been funded by Rex Sinquefield, but this wasn't about a lack of money. When we asked ourselves if turnstiles would be good for Metrolink stations, we were able to find $3.6 million. Letting Sinquefield fund the study is about letting special interests dictate the process and ask the questions that they want to ask, not the questions that the public needs to have asked. And so what we've seen so far is that the process has been full of a lot of conflicts of interest. This is not a process that many are proud of. It's something that many of us have heard from our constituents from with a lot of concerns. It has lacked accountability, it's lacked transparency, and most importantly, it has lacked public involvement. And that's the reason we need a public vote. The current public engagement is heavily funding a door-to-door campaign designed to hedge off concerns rather than to provide real public input in the reasons we're even considering this and what St. Louis might gain from it. Not to mention that St. Louis County residents have been left completely out of this conversation. While the city owns and operates St. Louis Lambert International Airport, it is a regional amenity, and it serves the entire St. Louis region. The city make up less than 10% of the population, and the city is not the bulk of residents or bulk of people who are using this. Giving the city voting public a say in the results will provide a public dialogue that is necessary to ensure that we have trust in this process, that we have faith in it, that it is a transparent process. And it is critical in order for us to move this forward. So thank you so much for holding this hearing today, and I look forward to hearing from the general public.
Thank you. So before we get into the speakers, I will share with you a little bit about the process and how we gather information, this transportation committee, as well as, because I sit on the working group for this process, how the working group operates. And I also sit on the Airport Commission, which is the regional body that represents the airport. I will share with you how we are interacting. And I will also share with you the process that we have gone through as the Transportation Committee to get ourselves prepared before there was even a contract signed, and also what we have in place to continue to have ourselves in a position to have knowledge that we can share with constituency. So first, let me thank Alderwoman Carol Howard for making sure that we had this facility available to us here today. And most especially, I thank her for serving on the Transportation Committee. So she is a member of the committee. So you know that you have a representative who is definitely there all the time. I'd like to recognize our Alderwoman Beth Murphy. And even though she's not on the committee, she shows up at the committee meetings as well. And any extra things that we have doing, she's there and she's available. So let's go back to the beginning of the year when we really started knowing that this process was going to form somehow, some way. The history is that the former mayor submitted an application to the FAA to have the opportunity to explore the possibility of privatizing more of Lambert Airport. And I say more because most people don't know how much is already privatized and its services and everything. So that's quite a bit already. But the other part to that is the process itself is going to give knowledge to everyone because all the information is public. But for me, it's going to educate me more on how the airport actually operates. I mean, down to the last little thing that you would never even think about. It'll show me our investment portfolio in its entirety, not just by bill, but it gives us an overall view. And for a lot of you who are sitting there, wherever you work, you've gone through some kind of process at some point where the company is looking at this. They may decide to do something different. Well, that's the exploration process. And you have to look at everything before you make any kinds of determinations. The wonderful thing about this process that I like is that we don't get to make the decision. We don't get to make it by ourselves. That's the great thing about it. The FAA is the number one as far as I'm concerned, because they are responsible for all airports so that they are operated in a most efficient safe way for the public. So nobody's gonna step over them. Nobody can change anything from their laws. They are on it. They're at the top. That's the top. The second tier of consideration that we cannot ignore in this process, as a matter of fact, you better not try, is the airlines. They have a say-so. If whatever the end result shows and whatever someone wants to discuss to move forward, if they don't like it, it doesn't happen. Because 65% of the carriers that provide service at that airport have to agree to anything you may even want to dream about you want to do. So no, they're not going to let anything hurt them in their service. So they are there as decision makers as well. Then you come back into the legislative part of it, and you will have an opportunity for our transportation committee to have input on the decision-making process. But believe me, if it doesn't get past FAA or the airlines, it'll never get to us because the deal is over. Whatever conversation it is, it's over, totally over. But just in case, all of those two top tiers agreed on some form of change, and I say some form of change, is because there could be many things that could be discussed. And just for your clarity and understanding, by law, you cannot sell an airport. So we just want to clear that up front. And if you don't believe me, all you gotta do, everybody's got a phone, just ask Google to pull it up by FAA, and it's real clear. We cannot sell an airport. That's not gonna ever happen. So if it gets to us, transportation, there will have to be dialogue, there will have to be public hearings, to be all kinds of things, and it would have to pass out of committee. If it doesn't pass out of our committee, it's done again. It's over. If by chance, whatever a decision made to move forward with any type of change, and it gets out of committee, then it has to go to the full Board of Aldermen. And it has to be passed by the full Board of Aldermen. Again, we're already at 4 different entities, right? So that's 4 entities that have to agree. If by chance it passed the Board of Aldermen, it still has to go to the Board of E&A. And it has to be passed by them. And you all been following things. It's been interesting the last few years. We've had things delayed. We've had things just forgotten about because the meeting of the minds wasn't there. So those are 5 major entities that would have to agree. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been around a long time. Getting 5 different entities to agree on anything can be a little difficult. So it has to be really, really beneficial to all involved. The other part that I wanted to share with you very quickly is that we have a working group that consists of a representative from the mayor's office, a representative from the comptroller's office, one from the president of the Board of Aldermen. I'm on that working group from the Transportation Committee. Also, there's our fiscal, and for those of you all who don't know, the Board of Aldermen, we have a financial analyst, and he's extremely qualified to understand the financial parts of this, to analyze them, and feed us back information to the Board of Aldermen so that we don't get misled in any kind of way. And so he's sitting there as well. And we were blessed to get him. He's had experience with the California government system on many levels. He understands the bonding processes and all of that. Aside from that, the working group, we also have assistance from entities that we trust. So the comptroller's office, she has bond representatives there that her office chose to make sure that information that is brought to us is analyzed properly, and they look, and we go to them to make sure that everything is okay. Our transportation committee, because in that working group, I have the oversight of communication. And I know they wish they had never done that now, because I really believe in communicating. I have a background in community organizing. I understand how important it is for the public to be, first of all, educated, because the public needs to have as much information as possible in order to make any kind of decision on something that affects their lives. And so I will go overboard with communicating with you. You'll get sick of me and all the stuff coming to you in the many different forms and fashions and all that, but it's necessary. As close as I am to the process, I'm learning things every day and will continue to be learning things every day. So I would not want to put a burden on you to make a decision about something that you really didn't have any idea what it was. So that's only fair to you. So we're also going to get an assistant that will help us in making sure we get things to you timely, that we don't miss anything of importance to go on the website for you to look at, and to help answer questions faster when you email to us, so that we're on top of that. That's critical. Like I'm behind a little bit now, and I got to stop emailing people at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning because they don't like that. I forget people keep their phones and computers on, and so they don't like that. But we're behind, and we got to get caught up. The other part of the communication process is that the portals that have been set up for you to get information, you can ask questions, you can send something, some data that you've found somewhere to us, because we may not have seen it. All of the meetings are taped. Our working group meetings are taped and put online for you to look at your leisure, because we know you can't make every meeting. Also, the advisory group meetings, when the advisors come to talk to us, those are also taped for you to have privy and information to, because you need that. You need it. First of all, I've never believed in bringing problems to a community. I know how hard it is to go to work every day, raise your children, keep your house going, keep your car going. You don't need unnecessary problems and things to be concerned about. And most especially, the trust factor that is involved in this large operation. So we're going to make that available to you that way as well. And we're going to be thinking of other ways to do it. So we'll be doing radio, we'll be doing everything. We'll be doing, I want them to set up a new system for texting too, because we don't have that available to you. And sometimes that's the easiest way. You got a minute or two, you can send a message real quick. And it comes to us directly, and we can answer real quick. So we're going to be doing that. As we move through this process, and for those who don't know, it's going to take a minimum of 18 months, more like 2 years, because we analyzed where we're supposed to be in the benchmarks at our meeting, and we're already a month behind. So I know it's going to be on that 24-month side before we have enough information and we would have analyzed everything to even start talking about what that decision might look like, if there even is going to be a decision made. We have a great airport that is beginning to show progress, which is a wonderful thing because we've been stagnant for so long. We also have a great airport director who is, oh, I forgot. The airport director is on the working group. So she's right there. The other day, we were putting together the survey for the St. Louis County. They're going to be very involved. And also St. Clair County in Illinois, because it is a regional process. And they all sit on the airport commission. And she caught something right away. She sent it to all of us on the working group. We agreed, and it was changed. So our airport director is right there, making sure that everything is said and done the right way. So I appreciate the extra work that the director is doing with her team, because they're the ones that are providing information to the advisory group to work on. I think the misunderstanding is that there are a group of people coming in and they're creating information and just doing what they want to do. But that is not the case. You are being protected. You are definitely being protected. I even myself at one point, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, but when I was talking, I made a mistake in something that I said. It was caught. 2 people in the working group caught it. Some public people caught it. I in my last public forum, I admitted my mistake. The mistake is corrected, and we move forward. So we'll be doing a lot of that with each other as we go forward. We're all taking on extra burdens in order to get this done. But know that in any exploration process, you're going to have some bumps in the road. But we hope that we will all have the opportunity to work together, to question each other, and also give guidance. Because we don't know everything. None of us do. You know, you can tell by my white hair and everything, I've been around for a minute. And we have so much that needs to be done on behalf of the city of St. Louis. This city, it has the ability to grow, and it can grow and improve without putting additional tax burdens on you. And we can get smarter on how we operate this city. So as we move forward today, I don't want to have a debate with you today. I want to hear from you today. So you're going to have an opportunity to take 3 minutes and share with us your thoughts and your feelings about this process and about this board bill. It looks like I only got about 8 people over here.
I don't know if this is complete.
Okay.
Has everyone signed up that wishes to address the group here? Okay, if
Good.
you're for public vote, put your name here. If you're against it, put it over here. Okay?
Great.
Are you against the public vote?
Yep.
You don't want it to go to the public?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you're representing yourself, just put self.
Don't be shy.
I would just like to thank everyone for coming out today and informing yourself with this process. It will be, as Alderman Davis said, a continuing conversation, and hopefully we'll have more information on where to access more information online. We had that, but somehow it didn't get here this morning, so I will, what I can do is probably post it on my website and then maybe even put it in the church bulletin, because I know many of you are here because of that communication. So, but I think that continued process of communication and keeping you informed of how this process is evolving is very, very important, because it is your tax dollar, it is your airport as taxpayers and stakeholders in the St. Louis region. It's very important that we work smarter and work together to make our city the best it can be.
Okay. We got everybody? All right.
You want me to keep time?
Yes, please. So Alderwoman Howard is going to keep the time for us. And if at the end, if everybody is real responsible with our 3 minutes, We wanted this session to last a total of an hour and a half. And so it looks like we'll be able to definitely get through everybody here on both lists. And what we'll do is, at the end of the session, I'll wrap up based on what I heard for tasks that we are going to have to be responsible for, whether it's getting additional information to you, or how we could add another process to make sure we are involving the public well enough. So I'm extremely excited about hearing from you. I wanted to introduce, and Sharita Rogers? Okay, so this is our assistant clerk at the Board of Aldermen, and you see her reading the bills and everything when we're in session on the floor. This is Sharita Rogers. Yeah. I see that our law clerk is back here, and so that's Lou Golly. And one of the things that Lou doesn't know is I knew about him and his work, and he knew nothing about me. And I've been working with his aunt, oh gosh, 30 years ago. So he comes from good stock. She was no nonsense. Woo, she was no nonsense. Lord have mercy. She taught me some things, though. She taught me. But I think I'm going to give the two people that came in an opportunity. Welcome to the session. I wanted to check with you and see if you are interested in speaking before the body today. If you'd like to sign up to speak. No? Okay. Okay, thank you. So now let's get started. And I'll go back and forth on the two lists for pro and con, I guess this is. Okay. So the first, oh, I can't see this. Okay. The first person for a public vote is John Triska.
Yes.
Come right ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Yes, sir.
I've heard a lot of concern through coworkers. If this privatization does go through with the management, will it affect the core workers? And well, there's, like I said, there's been no explanation,
You're right.
and there's been a lot of stuff thrown out. And so the core workers that are our city employees will or will not be affected. That's the major concern that I have been hearing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And as I said, I'm not going to debate, but I'm going to answer that, because that's an important concern that needs to go back. And so, and a part of this process is, we will also be doing public information sessions with the employees of the airport, so that we can clear all that up. And as a matter of fact, the airport director, we talked about it in our last working meeting this week, that we want to send out a document to them. First of all, I don't want nobody worrying and losing sleep about this. So we're going to send a document out to them to explain and show them in the contract that as we are exploring, this will not be a consideration. And for those of you who have ever been with a company that was bought by another company and things like that, the employees they're still there working. Okay, so, and you got your unions, those who are unionized, to protect you as well.
Right, well,
Yeah.
we've asked a couple of the unions and they've been kept in the dark.
No.
I just, as far as what I've been told.
And online, when you go online and start catching up with what's been going on, you will see a transportation committee meeting, you were there, that was held at the airport with union representatives, business managers. So we cleared up all
Okay.
that. And we will continue to talk to them. I talked to two yesterday.
The clarity is the thing that's gonna make it work.
I know, that's the only thing. And that's why I was angry, because they were getting out in front of us with the discussion about the whole process. And now we've brought it back so that we're all involved. So that's what's really important.
Okay, thank you for your time and efforts.
All right, so you're welcome. Against the public vote, Is it John Darmody?
Madam Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to take and speak today. Pardon me. I've lived in the city of St. Louis and that there all my life. I was born in Jefferson Barracks. I've lived here 75 years. And I've seen a lot of changes that have gone on in that there. And the things that concern me the most in that there is the fact in that we don't get enough information from the administration for the city of St. Louis to really civilly think about these items in that. But the concern I have right now, and you corrected some of it, and that's up because what was in the bulletin for our church here, because I'm a parishioner here at the church, that is talking about the airport by sale, lease, or transfer. Well, you said specifically it's not going to be sold. So it's either going to be a transfer or a lease of some sort now whatsoever. I'm against it, but on the other hand too, and if it does go through, that it's just one entity that takes and has the opportunity to be the privatization sponsor for it, not a group of people in it. The other thing is, as far as the FAA is concerned, with the privatization bill in that there in 2012, it has a servability clause and emergency clause. Could you clarify that for me, please?
Well, that's for the bill to go into effect immediately, and the process to take forward. It's a process to move something forward immediately.
This means servability.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, yes. And again, I don't want to debate this because this is really an information
Right.
forum, but we have 2 years ahead of us.
Right.
To try to figure some things out. And the great thing about when you actually go and explore every aspect of an operation, you find out things and you look at yourself and wonder, well, why didn't we think about doing this a different way before? And you may discover that you can handle everything yourself. So that's why I like processes. I started my career out at Ralston Purina. They were doing that all the time. They had a whole department, and I finally got promoted into that audit department, where we would go into different sections and audit the whole operation, determine what was being done right or wrong, and in some instances, we grew departments, we shrank departments, and some we eliminated.
Right.
And then I also was privy to the process when Ralston Purina first started buying other entities and also allowing people to come and buy certain aspects of their company. Some of you might remember when they had Continental Baking, and that was a disaster. So, and we learned from that mistake. But Energizer was a good fit. They were a good fit. My sister worked at Ralston Purina, and her division was bought by 4 different companies while she was there.
Yeah.
But it didn't change her employment status. As a matter of fact, she got some good raises on one of them. Really good raises. So, I mean, you know, this is what happens in corporate America. This is what happens in business. That airport is a business. And we have been stagnant for a while, but we have some good things that are happening. We're hoping we'll have even more. And so just to give information, not debating, when we look at when the thought was there to do new runways, all those people were bought out of their homes in Bridgeton and all that. Did you get to vote on that? Actually, I don't think any of us were asked anything about it. The public wasn't. So that still sits out there with nothing done yet, 20 years later. So, yeah, so.
W1W, every time the president comes in, he lands on it.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful for him? He has his own
Doesn't do
one.
anything.
Yeah. But I mean, those are the kind of things, you know, you look back at and you say, could we have done that different?
No.
So it is what it is.
Right.
Well, we couldn't predict what was gonna happen
We-
economically.
That too.
So-
Right.
And so sometimes you have to just, you made a decision, you thought it was the best one at the time. But in this instance, we don't get to just do what we want to do. There are too many entities that have a say-so because they are invested in that airport. First of all, you got the federal regulations ahead of everything else. And then you've got the airlines that are invested in the airport. And believe me, they're not gonna let anybody upset their boat. So that's the good part about this process, and how it's protected.
But it takes too long.
All right, can we go on as far as for me?
I'm so sorry, I
addressing
took up 2 of
the
your
chair?
minutes.
Okay, no
I took
problem.
2 of your minutes, I'm
But
sorry.
That's all right. You don't have to pay me back on those whatsoever.
Yes, sir.
I have 2 other items in that there. Has the TSA, the FCC besides the FAA, and the FBI, DEA, and ATF in that there have any input whatsoever to
Well,
this means that we're an international airport?
Yes, so that all falls under FAA. So we can't touch TSA. That's not even a discussion here. You
Right.
can't have it. So no, sir, none of that can be touched. And FAA governs all of that.
Okay, and then the other thing was, at the end of the notice in that there in the bulletin, and it talked about entity and in parentheses, entities, IES. And you kind of clarified the fact in that there, that if it was a sale, there's not gonna be a sale of it. So we're looking at more than one person or a group involving in the investment in this, to privatize it?
Well, what happens is, and most entities out here that operate in business, you could have an investment group come together.
Right,
That's what you would have.
There you go.
And they would represent themselves as an entity.
Additionally, right now, there are
Right.
several entities that are operating different sections of the airport. I mean, our facilities management is one, we've got, food service. There's lots of
Right.
people involved right now, so, but it would probably be under one.
well, one
We
thing in
don't
that there that I'm happy about, the fact of that the airport in and out itself is completely surrounded by MoDOT. So MoDOT has all the accessibilities in that there to the airport in that there. So we know that it's not going to be a certain municipality that is holding us ransom in that there for
No.
one particular item or another. And I have a statement, I don't want to scare you or anything else like that, but Rex Singfield in that there was my classmate.
Get out of here.
At Bishop
Wow.
DeBerg, right?
Okay. Okay. Very interesting. Okay. So for the public vote, we have Richard Bethard? Close? Bethard, okay.
It's Buto.
Buto. Well, I wouldn't have never got that.
No, you never would have.
No.
No one ever has, and no one ever will.
Okay.
Well, I am Richard Buto, and I live in the 15th Ward, and I speak today in support of Alderwoman Spencer's bill to call for a vote before any leasing or privatization of the airport can proceed. The citizens of St. Louis should determine whether this conflict-laden exploration continues. First, I feel I must speak to some of your opening remarks that have me concerned this morning.
Yes, sir.
A listening session without committee members to listen is a non-listening session. That's one. Simplified, categorized comments that you will open for online takes complex issues and crams them into pre-limiting boxes. The opening call for respect you gave is so important. I wish your colleagues on this committee demonstrated the same respect for citizens that the two of you demonstrate with your presence here. I thank you very much for being here. This is so important. They are missing an opportunity, and I hope as a committee you address firsthand listening as a value to public officials. Thank you. I spoke to this being conflict-laced. It is conflict-laced from the beginning of a former mayor who started the car and then is now a consultant in this. That is ridiculous. It is conflicted in that, within the working group's minutes of the August 7th meeting, there is a recognition of polling and focus groups, and the data, the unfiltered data from that polling and those focus groups has not been released. That's communication I think the city has to have. It guides the working group, but it doesn't guide the citizenry of St. Louis. And that is a disturbing lack of communication for me. To the merit of the proposal, privatizing is a very dangerous thing where profits for a private company must be factored in rather than best management and long-term thinking. Right now, a few things are coming together in my life that would signal what a bad idea privatization of a public asset is. I'm taking care of home repairs that I have neglected for years. And I'm going through great turmoil because what could have been a small cost, small project is now added to another small cost, small project, which is added to another one and another one. I am also reading a book on the history of Los Angeles. Los Angeles privatized their water department in the 1870s when it was a village of 8,000 people. By the end of that contract, it had mushroomed to 150,000 in the beginning of the 20th century, but the contractors knew they did not have the time to recoup their expenses, so negligent upkeep was done. Finally, we just watched a couple of stadium bonding, funding deals sail through all the government safeguards you identified, despite overwhelming evidence of citizen opposition. So I don't feel comforted by those. While the Board of Aldermen debates calling for a vote to proceed, a parallel call for a vote is ongoing. Today I have a citizen petition you may sign that will require a vote no matter what the public Board of Aldermen decides. So I will have these petitions here. If anyone wants to sign a petition to call for a public vote, no matter what the Board of Aldermen decides. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, too.
Thank you.
So I just want to share with you very quickly, because you pointed out some good things and people need to consider, and most especially your analysis talking about the home repair. And so just to share with you as well, one of the things that we're doing is we will have the opportunity to look at every aspect of the airport to see what condition the airport is in. Because nobody is going to invest in something that they can't make any money from. If it has too many things that are wrong, they're not coming anyway. So just know that we're doing those kinds of things to make sure that even on both sides of looking at this, so we know exactly where we are as a city and what needs to be done there, as well as if there is an investment opportunity, that they will know factually everything. It's open disclosure on everything. So I appreciated that, because I don't think a lot of people even thought about that part of it, that needs to happen. And we will have results up either Monday or Tuesday, because they've been doing he was talking about the survey, the canvassing, yes.
No, I'm not talking about the canvassing results. I'm talking about the polling data and the focus groups that led to the canvassing material. I want the raw data released.
Well, the working group, we did that.
No, it hasn't been done. No. The working group may have it, but the public does not have it. The working group has polls, and that data has not been released. The working group has information guiding them on what issues the focus group decided were important in exploring, but that has not been released. All of that has been released are the things that have promoted the sought after answers. That's what's been released. And that, I'm afraid, it may be valuable, but it loses its value when it isn't everything, when it's not placed into a context of, these are the 10 issues, and the canvassing directs attention to 2 of them. Let's hear all 10 issues. Am I making sense? I'm sorry if I'm not very articulate on this.
You are making
Okay,
sense,
okay, thank you.
but it is not a norm to do that, okay? And I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay.
Because we've gone back and forth in this working group in determining what these questions will look like. And I can't even remember how many times I've said no to a particular question where I was outvoted, and then we come back and it's formulated maybe 5 or 6 different ways before all of us agree. Because if all of us don't agree, it doesn't happen. It's not used. We all have to agree.
That doesn't really address the point. The point is, your working group, where people get paid only if the answer they want comes through, guides this process. And the whole point of a citizen vote is that the citizenry, by definition, will be a conflict of interests. And the conflict will be solved by a vote.
So I think you're really talking about a different entity. I'm talking about the working group on behalf of the city of St. Louis. And I think you're talking about
I'm talking
the
about
advisory
STL
group.
314, or I may be.
Yeah, you're talking about the advisory
I'm
group.
using the wrong.
That's it,
Thank you very
okay.
much.
So
Thank
the
you.
advisory group cannot publish or work with any instrument unless we approve it. They don't get to do what they want to do.
Okay, then it becomes a question, then,
Yeah.
thanks for helping me with that
Yes.
process. It becomes the request to you on the working group to make public all the polling data, all the focus group data that helped formulate the canvas material. That's what I'm asking.
The 314 material.
Yes, yes.
In other words, you're wanting to know the focus group, what material they gathered from the focus groups
Yes.
to put together the 314
Yes.
hand bills,
314
The
has
raw
cherry-picked.
data,
the raw data.
That's
not the
it.
summary. You want
I
the
want the
raw
raw
data.
data, and I don't want the cherry-picked 314 information where they are aiming for an answer because they do not get paid unless they get that answer. So, of course, they're going to cherry-pick. Of course they are. That's their goal.
But they
Their
don't-
goal is not St. Louis, their goal is profit for their group.
But they don't get
That's
to make the
for another
decision.
time. You just want the raw data.
That's
That's
it.
all you want.
They get to decide
Not
the question that
summary,
they're asking.
just the
No, they
raw
don't
data.
get to decide it. That's what I'm trying to get
They're
you.
going out right now doing it.
No, but the instruments that they're using, we approved.
Okay.
We approved it.
Okay.
STL 314, all they are doing is doing the RFP, the request for proposal to what to do with the airport, not to what to do with the airport.
No, they don't get to do that. That's not their role. And that's why we came in and restructured everything. Because originally, based on what they had talked to people about in the past, it was just gonna be them making decisions and doing what they want to do. No, that doesn't happen that way.
Then we go back to what I originally said. If that's the case, what I originally said is the working group. Then I want from the working group, not filtered decisions on the polling, I want the polling data.
The raw data.
I want the polling data. And I think the public has a right to that polling data.
I'm not out polling anybody to help me
No.
formulate a question.
I didn't ask you to poll anyone.
No, what I'm
asking-
saying is that's not how we're doing it. We're sitting there doing it ourselves. We're not doing it like that. I'm
Yes,
sorry,
yes,
you're
thank
right,
you. I
and I
agree
agree.
completely with
Because
that.
I said I didn't want to debate,
Yes.
but you have put something on the table that could really confuse people. Okay,
Want to go over here and take, we did John Doe.
okay, so let's go here,
We had Richard,
okay,
so do we want to go back over here?
so we'll go back over here.
Darrell
Okay, Darrell O'Brien,
O'Brien?
That's me.
Mr. O'Brien?
great, come on.
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Everybody else. I'm against it going to the public vote because we live in a republic a democracy republic. We all get a vote to elect yous to represent us. The only thing the public, the voters of St. Louis know about the airport is A, can I get a direct flight, and B, is my plane on time? Anybody that lives south of Highway 64 could not tell you where the airport is, much less care what happens to it up there, okay? So it is up to our elected officials, yous, and the rest of your older people to do what's in the best interest for us. So yous get the data, unless you're trying to drive media advertising dollars for everything spent to educate all these people who don't care, then there's no reason to spend that money. So this is why there's no need for it to go out to a vote. You people have the accessibility to the raw data that this man wants. You have advisors, you have legal, all these people that take care of you will give you an STL 314 that will give you the RFP. They're getting off the track here. We're here just for the vote, not what's going to happen with the union members and all that. That has to do with the RFP, the request for proposal, which is 18 months, year, whatever. The only other airport in the whole world that is ever privatized is Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, as you know, got $30 million up front and in a 30-year lease. That's basically what we're looking for at the airport, is we're looking for a lump sum payment up front and then a short-term 20-year lease, 10-year lease, to dip our toes in the water to see what's going to happen 10 years from now. Because it's an illusion to know, to be able to predict, does Amazon come here and want to put in a cargo hub? Does the China hub come? You're mentioning about the airlines get to tell us what to do out there. The prisoners do not run the prison. FAA tells us what to do. Okay? The airlines out there, as you well know, TWA, which is why W1W was put in, took so long to get W1W put in that Car Icon came in and got rid of TWA. So you don't want to drag this out forever. You're going to miss the boat completely. On air cargo, supersonic intercontinental flights that can come in and out of W1W. We have 5 runways, Class A runways, that are doing nothing but hop, skips, and jumps for Southwest. When we can easily reach Singapore, we can reach London, just like TWA did. But we have 2 more major runways now than what TWA did. So don't drag this out.
Yes, sir.
And don't send it out to these people who don't care. They just want an online flight and a direct flight. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so now Wayne Snyder. Okay. Wayne Snyder.
One east and west, one across. Show you the ramp.
We need a north south.
Well, first of all, thank you, Alderman and Transportation Committee, for having this hearing. Appreciate the public's being heard out. First off, my general opinion is that privatizing the airport is both not needed at Lambert and a terrible idea in general for the city due to its lack of transparency and exclusion of the public in this process. However, I do believe a vote can be seen as a win-win for the city. Firstly, a vote brings the public into the process, which is badly needed just to add transparency. Secondly, it can bring pressure on the firms to offer the best deal possible to the city, knowing they have to bring the public on board with their deal. For this reason, a vote puts the city's interests first. And finally, a vote by the public is the biggest missing piece in this whole process. I sincerely hope elected officials won't deny the public of their right to vote on such a large public asset. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Michael Hayes.
Thank you for having me. My name is Michael Hayes. I'm a resident of the 12th Ward. I am not here to advocate for or against privatization. I'm against, however, the vote. We, as the gentleman here indicated, we have elected representatives. We have a representative form of government for a reason. At this point in time, I don't know whether privatization is a good idea or not. I'm not sure how anyone here today could say whether it's a good idea or not
I can't.
without knowing any of the details, without actually having a proposal in front of us. I personally have zero expertise in airport management. I don't know the people here, but I'm guessing that not many people here do have that kind of expertise. When this proposal eventually gets put forward, it will be a hugely complex agreement on the table. The members of the Board of Aldermen will have access to all relevant information. The members of the Board of Aldermen will have opportunities to meet with all of the experts in federal aviation, financial, legal experts. Most voters overwhelmingly, and when I say most, I mean 99 out of 100, will not have that kind of expertise available to them. The people who vote are not going to read the lease, and even if they did, they would not have the ability to comprehend a hugely complex, likely hundreds of pages of legal jargon. And they're not going to hire a lawyer and a financial analyst and someone from the Federal Aviation Department to help them understand that lease. We are not qualified to vote on this matter. We simply are not. The Board of Aldermen, we elect you. If the people here are against privatization for whatever reason, that's fine. Call your elected representative. Call your alderman or alderwoman. Email them. Email the comptroller's office. Email the mayor's office. Email President Lewis Reed's office if you are objecting to this. That's how our system works. I won't say none of us, but most of us are not qualified to make this decision, this hugely important decision for our city. And if it goes to a vote, then we're going to be getting ads, and there's going to be all these campaigns, and there will be misrepresentations. You know, the fact that people are saying that the airport is for sale, that is so dishonest, and they know it's dishonest. And I wish the representatives of our Board of Aldermen, the members of our board, would discourage that because they know better. No one has proposed that this airport be put up for sale,
And you can't sell it.
and it can't be done, and I wish people would stop saying that and at least have an honest debate about this. I'm not for or against privatization because I don't know. It sounds like it could be a good idea. Our airport has deteriorated my entire lifetime. You can't get a direct flight hardly anywhere anymore. And maybe it would get better, but maybe not. I don't know. But I think we should trust our elected representatives to make that decision. And guess what? If you screw it up, it can be changed later, or you can be voted out of office. Thank you for your
Thank you.
time.
Okay, Joe Ogre.
My name's Joe Auger. I'm a resident of the 15th Ward. And Alderman Davis, thank you for chairing this. You chaired the one at City Hall that I
Yes, sir.
attended. That one was later in the day and the room was hotter.
Yes,
And
it
so
was.
I admire your tone of the meeting. If I make it to the end, I quibble with some of the words that you said. Basically, I think all of this is built on a faulty premise. because we talk about the process, and at the end, should we vote on it, when Mayor Slay, the longest-serving mayor in St. Louis history, as he's cleaning out his desk a few weeks before leaving office, starts the process of should we privatize the airport? How did that come up just then? And then in June of this year, he's hired as a consultant by one of the potential bidders down the road. I had used the word lobbyist at the other meeting, and you corrected me, he's not a lobbyist. He is registered with the state of Missouri as a lobbyist.
But not with this process.
I don't know, but if it doesn't, I'm not a chef. When I go into the Asian market, I can smell fish. It smells. This thing just smells. The Huffington Post in August of 17 said, Rex Sinquefield usually gets what he wants. Likely a grab for cash and power, not sound fiscal policy. The Board of Estimate and Apportionment of the City of St. Louis voted to approve the contract with the advisory board. That is a legal way that we do that, that board votes on it. Between you and me, it's outrageous that they would do that without any consultation with the Board of Aldermen. It's legal for them to do it, but it's not right.
That's how we handle business things.
Well, and it's just not right. You've made many comments that are, basically the tone of your comments has just been to kind of appease us along and say the process is okay. We are protected. And the first examples you said was the airlines and the FAA. Well, I know who owns the airlines, and I know Trump runs the FAA. That doesn't comfort me that the airlines and the FAA are going to be our protectors in this. You know, if there was a way they could do fracking in the airport, the FAA would probably approve that. No. My neighbor, you said that maybe we could discover things in the process. But the whole consultancy thing, I think on the 314 side, it said it was through a competitive process by the city of St. Louis, approved by the Board of Estimate. Rex Sinquefield is the chief financer of this whole process. That, my time. Somebody said, I'm not an expert on pro football, but I was pretty sure that Mr. Cronkey and Mr. Peacock did not have the city's interests in mind. Maybe it's a coincidence, but that $18 million we spent didn't get us anything. And now we're talking about spending $19.2 million on a process that we don't have control over, to a consulting firm that's writing the literature for the polling so that they come back that says the public wants this, when the people who are writing the RFP don't really work for us. They work for Rex Sinquefield, and we're paying them. So, it smells like a duck, it walks like a duck, although in this case, I think this smells like a rotten fish. It's just, and it's an embarrassment. I think the Board of Aldermen should take a non-binding referendum next week to say, we gotta get out of the pool and get a consultant that even has the semblance of objectivity. This whole thing is an embarrassment. You know, the Huffington Post writes about it. St. Louis doesn't make the news very often, you know, and if we're interesting enough for people to talk about this process in a critical way, maybe we ought to look at it. Correct.
Thank you. Okay, Robert Cole.
Madam Chairman, board people, everybody in the audience, thank you for coming. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. It was mentioned earlier today that, in this meeting, that there's no county representatives. Well, I want to let everybody know that I am from the county, but I follow all of the things that happen in the city because, like, we're all a community here, and what impacts one really impacts the other, so it can't be separation in my mind. And I think that I've got here some issues and some concerns that I think that should be aired before we move forward with the proposal, or should be included in the proposal. And basically, I think that this is a great revenue opportunity, you know, for the city, and is a novel and leading edge idea. And revenue from that could offset the downturns in some the projects that we've had, and the funds could be used for future growth. However, there's some issues that I think that should be included in the proposal as we move forward, and since we're being proactive with this, I think that they should be included. The first issue is that there's been no mention of the vetting or background checking of the owners, investors, the business associates, and the business relationships to determine if there have been past, present, or potential future relation to terrorist activities, organizations, or shell companies fronting for terrorists. They may mass terrorist activities, and ensure that they don't have some potential access to the skies of our nation. The horrors of 9/11 demonstrated that airports and their ownership is a matter of national security. And I think that we should demand background checks for teachers, nursing home employees, government positions, aerospace industries. I've been fingerprinted when I taught in high schools, and I think that the investors should have these background checks just to be sure that there's no linkage to terrorist organizations, because this is a matter larger than just St. Louis, and the revenue producing opportunity is larger than the state of Missouri, and in fact, providing access to the skies of our nation from a central location like this. I think that there should be a lot more done, and that there should be something in a proposal that demonstrates how this will be achieved on an ongoing basis. And secondly, the federal law, the U.S. Patriot Act of 2001, prohibits investment by or payment to terrorists or terrorist organizations. All financial matters pertaining to private and/or public-private partnerships relative to the airport, directly or indirectly, should be made public with public access guaranteed. The method and assurance of continuous compliance with this federal law should be included in the proposal as authored by the combined efforts of the City of St. Louis and whomever the proposal writers are. The suggestions to address these issues are that the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security separately should thoroughly check the backgrounds of the owners, investors, associates, and business relationships, and maintain a process of continuing monitoring for influence from any terrorist organizations, and they should do this separately and compare their results to see if they come up with the same answers on these people. Since the airport security of jetliners carrying tens of thousands of gallons of jet fuel is a matter of national security, the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security and a federal judge should review and endorse the addition of whatever is added to the proposal to ensure that compliance with the federal law is demonstrated and the methods to protect our national security now and in the future is included. We do not want to inadvertently provide a staging area for terrorist activities using jetliners or unwittingly set a precedent for access to the skies of America and them being for sale to the highest bidder. There's been a mention of a lot of foreign presence out here at the airport, and I'm not against that, but I just want to make sure that whatever we have out there, that it's thoroughly investigated by the government, and that we're in compliance with the federal government guidelines for security. I remember the days of 9/11 and the thought of airliner going down in Midtown, carrying that jet fuel just really just sends chills up and down my spine. I'm sorry for bringing that up, but I happened to be looking at the History Channel when they were going over 9/11 and what was happening then. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Thank you for representing St. Louis County.
Gerard Connolly.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm just going to run through some bullet points. When I hit my 3 minutes, let me know. Firstly, I'm speaking in favor of Board Bill 93 to give the public the opportunity to vote on this decision. I'd like to make some observations about the process that have been gone through so far. At the beginning of the year, Transportation Committee held a meeting where the airport director presented a PowerPoint, and it is available on the Fly 314 website. There it is, airport operations, dated January 23rd, 2018. It was about an hour and a half, 2-hour meeting. All the committee members were present for that meeting, and I think I walked away from the meeting kind of amazed at what's been going on at the airport and how it has been gradually improving over the last 7 or 8 years, having faced very difficult circumstances prior to that. So fast forward, I think 2 or 3 weeks after that, the director of the Minority and Women-Owned Business Enterprises at the airport presented to that committee. And my understanding at the time is that there was going to be a third meeting where the mayor's staff would present kind of the administration's perspective. And I can't recall that meeting actually happening.
It did take place.
It did take place?
Attorney Garvin presented.
Oh, he presented, okay. And then fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, there was a presentation given by some of the members of the Fly 14 consultants, and at that meeting there were 5 of the 7 Transportation Committee members present, and 2 of them left prior to the presentation by Fly 314 because there were other agenda items. And by the end of the Fly 314 presentation, there were just 2 members of the committee. So I'm not confident that even the committee itself is fully engaged on this process, yet alone the rest of the board. And I think it's really important that the public be given that vote. When the Board of E&A approved the contract, within about 24, 48 hours, Fly 314 launched their website with the transparency portal where they'd uploaded a lot of documents that were produced by the airport. And they also uploaded statements by the mayor and I believe president of the board regarding the process, but they did not include the statement from the comptroller, Darlene Green, that expressed opposition to this contract. It was only following kind of social media and some other media reports that Fly 314 were challenged that contract had not been executed. They were just very eager to go out the gate and present their information from their perspective. Travis Brown from Grove, Missouri, who's part of the Fly 314 effort, appeared on Fox 2, and he basically, it was like a cheerleading for getting a privatization process. The door hanger that many people have received, one side of the door hanger has 11 guiding principles. Those were drawn from the application to the FAA. The airport administration, the airport commission, the airport director were not part of that process. And the airport director states as much in one of the recent meetings. The confusion around the terminology, there was first an airport advisory working group. That's the group that Alderman Davis mentioned at the beginning, which has city elected officials and city department heads and legal people on it. And now the group that includes all the consultants plus that city group are referred to as the advisory group. So there's just constant confusion. in terms of the terminology, and we come to this hearing and we don't have a packet that gives a basic summary. You've got to spend a lot of time on Fly 314's website to understand it. I know the Comptroller's Office at one point requested that the city have its own website that presents things more neutrally, if you like. And then the last hearing on October 3rd, STL TV, who are recording this, recorded the meeting, and it was posted, before the end of the next day, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't see Fly 314 here filming this. It was 2 or 3 days after the first hearing that they posted, not their own video, but they posted the city's video. So I'm just questioning the integrity of the process. I think that's all I have to say. Okay, thank you.
Spencer Owens.
Alderwoman Davis. I'd like to first thank you and the members of the committee for holding these meetings. I think transparency is very important to the process, and because we're dealing with a regional asset, this transparency will begin to lend a little bit of legitimacy to the entire process, so I'd like to thank you for that first. I'm a member of or a resident of the 7th Ward, and I just have just 2 really quick points. So on the amount of information that we have received thus far, and hopefully will continue to receive in the future, I would think that that information will do not much good if we, the people, cannot do anything about it. So we can receive as much information as you give us, and we appreciate that, but if we cannot actually vote on the matter, then all that information really isn't for naught. And secondly, as I mentioned before, transparency is the beginning of adding legitimacy to this process, and I think that we should go through this exploration process because you never know what's going to come out of an investigation. However, I do believe that a vote by the people will confer the most amount of legitimacy to this process that we're undergoing. And so those are the 2 points that I have today. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Ferris.
All that information that you can go on and look at, then you can go on, digest it, and then call your alderperson to let them know how you want to vote.
Okay.
Right?
We're gonna have we're gonna have enough minutes to do a little closing session after this. This is our last speaker, okay? Mr. Ferris?
Thank you, Father.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for holding the meeting and inviting us to speak. I'm very concerned about the process not being transparent enough for me so that people will know what you all are doing. And I'm starting to feel like a prisoner myself. That is, with things being decided without my awareness, without my opportunity to participate, provide feedback by voting, I think I really support having having a vote by the public. I'm thinking back to the Veolia issue when Veolia Corporation was wanting to take over operation of our water department. We didn't let that happen because we knew the experience of Indianapolis was that Veolia ran their water department down. We didn't let that happen. I'm afraid of private interests I'm afraid of an outfit taking charge where the private interests of the stockholders come before the interests of the city of St. Louis. I'm remembering Kiel Auditorium too. We were told that the auditorium was going to be improved. But when it came time to get the auditorium improved, the developer said, oh, sorry, we didn't have enough money left to do that. I'm afraid of that kind of transaction, that kind of process. So I really want the people to be involved in making the decision of whether to go ahead. And that's as much as I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that was our last speaker.
Hey, y'all, you got a great microphone. I've been in places where the microphone is terrible.
Well, we have to thank St. John's Parish for that.
Yeah. Okay,
There is a hand back there.
there's a hand.
Would you like to speak, sir? Would you mind coming
Come
up
right
and
on
sign
up.
in?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We asked you when you came in.
Yeah.
We didn't mean to embarrass you.
I'm motivated now.
So which one do you want to sign on?
For?
Oh, no, that's not it.
Okay, all right.
You're against it.
No, I'm for it.
Oh, no,
Right the first time.
no, yeah, there you go.
Pro.
Pro, that's what you want to do.
Sorry, folks. Excuse me. My name is Jeff Ramage. I'm a resident of the 16th Ward. I've been living here in St. Louis City for the last 20 years since I retired from the Air Force. Some of the things I've observed over those 20 years have been pretty interesting. But I want to voice my support for the Board Bill 93. And one of the things, excuse me, it's been a long time since I had to ad-lib in front of public. One of the things that concern me about this and is the timing of this as it applies to the reduction of the Board of Aldermen. And we're about two years away from that, roughly, and we're 2 years away from a potential outsourcing of our asset, the airport. And I have serious concerns about the turmoil that's going to be going on with our elected representatives around the time that we're going to have to make a decision about this. And I think the public vote would be an endorsement of whatever decision that you want. I mean, I've heard people say, and it's a valid point, that we elect representatives and they should be able to represent us. And we should exercise that process of reaching out to our representative and telling them how we feel. And certainly that's true, but my concern is the environment they're going to be in 2-3 years from now when the rubber has to meet the road on this. And our Board of Aldermen is, I'm fearful of the turmoil that's going to be going on. And I think it's important that the citizens of St. Louis have a say in this rather important decision, because it's going to impact people who work there, our friends and our neighbors who work there, who are labor. Because in my experience with outsourcing, labor always loses, always. And I've never seen one that was a winner before. So I'm concerned about that. And profit. Private entities, corporations are there to make profit. But our government is there to make sure that our assets support our region, our people. And corporations, I can't call them and say, well, my streets, needs repair, or my runway needs repair. They're not going to listen to me because they don't work for me. You all work for us, so that's my point. So I think a public vote, when comes time, I think it's going to be vital. And I think it'll give it legitimacy if it passes or fails. So thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you.
And thank you.
And this will be the last, okay? Because we need to get out of here. We're not taking any more.
Who is that?
It's,
Hi, my name is Michelle Owens, and I'm a teacher in North City, and I've also spent some time in Cochabamba, Bolivia, where they had some privatization of their water resources, which led to one of the biggest populist movements that South America has seen in a while, and now they have a populist president. We have a huge rise of populism going on, and people don't like when that's going on. There's kind of this general movement of people feeling like they don't have a voice. And even the people that just want the online flights that they can book from their phone, they don't like it when they feel duped, you know, so I think this is more just a call for us to better, you know, with communication, better to educate people what's going on. And so, yes, we should do all this investigation and exploration. One gentleman made a comment about, you know, well, the people that are voting wouldn't have the expertise of all these different people. But if you present a common sense person with the data, they should be able to make a vote on it. And if we don't present the common sense man with all this information and allow them to have a vote, it just leads to chaos and furthering this idea that the government is swampy and that we don't have a voice. And so I think it's most important that we rise to the challenge of educating the common man rather than just dismissing the common person, common man or woman, about what's going on, because if we don't have a vote, it's just going to give the illusion and a rise to this idea that people aren't included, and that leads to chaos, as I've seen in other circumstances. So I think, if for nothing else, just to keep everyone feeling like this is a democratic institution, I think a vote is incredibly important. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm not gonna turn it back on. Did you, sir,
Was there anyone else?
stand in the back, did you want to speak?
Let's-
Oh, okay, all right.
Just put your name.
Adolphus Pruitt, President, St. Louis NAACP. I live in the 28th Ward. And, you know, I wasn't gonna say anything, but I won't say pleasantly surprised, but I'm just surprised to see how the people come and try to manipulate the voters on the south side as often as they do try to manipulate the ones on the north side. I didn't know they did this to you guys on this side. I mean, it's interesting, you know. I know Megan and Kara Spencer, and I support them at Alderman, but it's funny how, you know, you get kind of tired how Alderman, we got 28 aldermen, and they're supposed to operate as a democracy and introduce bills or efforts, and when they don't win at the Board of Aldermen, then they come back and try to manipulate the public and say, well, we want a public vote because they couldn't get their way in the old alderman. So if every alderman who did not get their way in the Board of Aldermen would come out with a bill that says now we want the public to vote on it because we couldn't win in the Board of Aldermen, we would be doing this every day. This is crazy. Then we hear people talking about, well, they give us, the airport gives us $8 million a year, then why am I raising my taxes to buy fire trucks and to buy trash trucks? If the airport is paying me so much money, why am I broke? Now, $8 million ain't doing nothing for me.
6.5.
6.5. Then they talk about my airport is great. 10 years, 20 years ago, I had hundreds of thousands of people flying through there. Now we bragging about 7. And they talking about, oh, we get these grants. Well, why ain't we got them yet and fixed up the airport? We haven't, all these federal grants we can get. Well, where they at? Why are we just now talking about federal grants we can get to fix up our airport? If you knew we can get federal grants all of this time, you're going to wait till now to say we can get, don't vote to privatize, we can get federal grants to fix it up. You ain't tried to get them before now because it doesn't work that way. It don't be manipulated. I'm tired of this. If you can't win at the Board of Aldermen, don't bring that crap to me. We'd be here every day because you introduced a bill you couldn't get passed. You wanted to legalize marijuana, couldn't get it passed. Next thing I know, I got black folks got petitions in front of them. Sign here so we can legalize marijuana. They won't let you do it. Well, you bring it to me because you couldn't win at the Board of Aldermen. I don't want a petition in my face every time an alderman loses a vote at the Board of Aldermen. Simple as that. I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you.
cannot go outside of it, is that correct?
Currently it is, but one of the things you have to understand is, we can only get, we're one of 12 airports out of all the airports that was grandfathered into this process, where we can get something back to the city. Other cities get nothing,
And it's capped
and it's capped,
at
okay?
6.5.
We're capped, that's all you're gonna get,
Okay.
okay? And I guess what is so confusing is that you don't know how the airport is currently being operated. And so almost the majority of the airport has privatized operations already. Those are not our employees. That's another company, and that's their employees that are doing these things. Like Host,
Baggage handlers.
Right.
the people that bring the fuel.
The airlines.
The people who clean the airport. I mean, it's not our employees.
The only thing we own is the ground.
The grounds, and we have Rhonda, our
That's it.
operator out there and staff, to make sure things are being run.
That's all the city owns is the ground.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my sinuses are acting up really bad, and I don't want to start.
Can I ask you one follow-up to that? One follow-up question?
Yes, sir.
You said we were only 12 of the cities lucky enough to get those funds from the airport.
Right.
Yes.
They really checked thoroughly to make sure we're not endangering that agreement in some way by leasing it or
It's under
in
control.
some way. They said they're triple checking.
Oh, yeah, you are.
This is the golden goose and none of this matters.
Yeah.
That'll
That's another part of the process. And let me explain to you. We just got started, okay? Their contract, the Fly 314 contract, was not signed to August. Then we had to formulate how the process was gonna move forward. And they got slapped real hard on their hand when they jumped out there, okay? If you go back and look at the committee meetings, I was one of the people who really smacked them hard. And since then, we've had some disagreements. That's why the working group was formed, because we gotta take care of you and the city and make sure the process is totally transparent and has the objectivity that is required to look at an operation like this. And so we can't allow them to be ahead of us. And so we kind of slowed things down. And even after we slowed it down, there was another hiccup. And then we just decided, you can't publish nothing. You can't put anything on the website until we approve it. You don't go out with a document to say anything to the public unless we approve it. All these processes, the working group has to approve it. So that's the only way it's gonna work. Only way.
I've been working on this 4 years. I tried to get Amazon here 4 years ago.
Oh, well, you know the debacle with trying to get the China hub.
No, not China Hub.
No, I'm talking about another one, another process. Yeah, yeah. So we don't really, what we're saying is, look at opportunity. If there's none there, there's nothing for us to do. If there's something there to do and we can do it ourselves, then we do it ourselves. We don't need an investment group. But if at the end of the analysis, it makes sense to have an X number of dollars, whatever it turns out to be, invested into our airport, here's the first thing I know. Only a fool would invest their money to lose it.
Right.
Okay?
Or government.
Right.
Or the government.
Well, the government does it every day. The government does it every day. So you know that because you've been watching us. We do that. So at the end of the day, I don't know what that's gonna look like at the end. That's why I can't tell you whether I'm for or against it at this moment. Because I am not gonna be that foolish to say that to you, and I don't have information that concludes that.
That's why we're just here about the vote. We're not here about the RFP.
But think about this. Let's think about this. I think I posed this question to the last group. So, if this early in the process, we have a vote, and you say, we don't want to do any more privatizing. We don't want to ever do anything.
We don't want to look at anything.
We don't want to look at anything. And then at the end of the analysis, there's this big opportunity that we got to pass up. because you said don't do nothing. How do you handle that? Then you want to go back and take another vote?
You look at Ward Street and all the boats that left down there. You look at all the railroads that left, everything. You can look at history and tell you what's gonna happen.
Yeah. So I
NWA, leaving Ozark.
it's the public, okay? So we're gonna work through this and we'll see what, yeah, we'll see. Because at the end of the day, and I don't know if you all really pay attention to the Board of Aldermen meetings. I've been talking for 8 years about how to become a city that makes money with the assets that it has. We don't know how to make money. I'm gonna just tell you, I complain on every committee I'm on. I've been complaining ever since I've been there because I'm not used to things operating that way. When I was on the pension fund for the teachers, I went to a meeting, my first meeting, and I looked at the budget and I said, you spending $115,000 a year to rent and you are an investment body? You need to own your own building. Stop this. They have been doing that for 40 years. And I fought hard to build that building for that teachers fund. It is one of the most healthiest funds ever. When we had the doubt, you know.
And they rent space out.
And we rent space out, costs nothing there, we profit from it. And when we had the downturn because of the change of process of investments and stuff that they had never looked at, we didn't have any complaints. They weren't like the state. They didn't lose money during the downturn. So it's just a way you have to look at business sometimes. But I can't say that to you because I am open to you making your decision about how you think. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you decided that you didn't want to even have a Board of Aldermen anymore, I'm good with that too. Whatever you decide, I'm good with that. But what I'm going to say to you is, if you want to wake up every Monday morning and go through thousands of documents and contracts and leave all the voting up to the public, and you have to vote on whether or not to approve that contract or not, or go for this new grant, or vote for street repairs, or vote, I mean, I'm with you. I'm good. My children are grown. I don't own a hamster. I don't have cable. I don't have nothing, okay? And I'm good with that. I'm happy. But I love serving and I love giving to my community. So I'm happy with whatever you guys decide, and we're gonna move forward and we're gonna see where this goes.
I think we've officially broken the format, but you keep talking about getting more information and finding out at the end. But with Rex Singfield's consultants, we're basically paying the bad wolf's brother-in-law to give us the map to Grandma's
They have
house.
no power to make a decision on your behalf.
How,
None whatsoever.
anyone at this table who doesn't have a problem with that, with Singfield even being in the room, shouldn't be in the room.
They have no power to make any decision on your behalf.
Really?
They cannot sit at the Board of Aldermen and vote.
But
on
what
your
I'm saying is,
behalf.
based on your behavior today, I don't think the Board of Aldermen is gonna, how do I have any faith that you'll do anything contrary to what they say? I have none. So
Well,
I
I
either
take
need to
that as
shut
a- I
up, or
take
you
that
all
as
need
an
to behave in a
insult.
way that general people have any trust in this
I
process.
take that as an insult.
I-
I'm sorry that you feel that way. That's all I can say. Sir, I'm sorry that you feel that way. That's all I can say.
I do.
I'm so sorry.
We're here to listen,
I'm really
and
so
we have
sorry.
listened to you,
Yes, sir.
and I don't understand where you're getting our
Yeah.
behavior
I
as
agree
being
that you don't
offensive.
understand it. I agree that the board is not used to being.
No, I'm saying I don't understand how you interpret our behavior as being offensive. We have listened.
Your behavior is offensive because no one is saying, hey, Lyda, hey, President, that's all great, but we need to chill and maybe make this a fair process.
Well, we took it away from them because they didn't allow us to be in the
You
decision-making
didn't
part of
take
it.
it away from 314.
They have a contract to do some work.
Yeah.
But we have a responsibility to make sure that that is done properly. And so we have our own consultants, and we are sitting there. and we are making the decisions. They're not making them. If you would just look at those meetings, you'll see.
Go online and look at the
Be
meetings.
already-
Because I have no issues on tearing them up when they need to have it. And I've done it, and I've stopped some things, and I've improved some of the process. I don't have an issue with it.
Regardless of the process, I'm not gonna go to the seller of the car's brother to tell me if it's a good car or not.
And I
that's what we're
understand
doing.
our dislike of Mr. Stinkfield getting in our business. I understand on another project that we had, because people didn't like Paul McKee. But when it was an opportunity for us to get NGA here and keep those jobs here and improve our opportunities here, I was supporting that project. I don't care nothing about no Paul McKee. I fought against Paul McKee. I went to Jefferson City to testify against Paul McKee. But it's about what's best for my
Best for our
city
city and
and
our
my
population.
constituency.
And it was about.
I don't care about
It
him.
was about a half an hour after we stopped talking about Paul McKee that the airport came up.
Can I ask
I don't know.
Number one, I'd like to apologize. I think you guys have run a very nice
I'm
place
sorry if I
here.
offended anybody with anything
You
I
know, I
said.
think it's been
I'm so
fair
sorry.
and open. I'd like to apologize on
I'm just
behalf
sorry.
of others.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Ma'am, if I can just ask one question.
Yes,
Joe
sir.
Snyder.
We need to.
What's, sure, who made the decision originally to purchase Lambert Airport?
Oh, back when it was
It
purchased?
was a deal.
Hey, I'm asking you. Thank you very much. Madam Chairman,
This go back to the
who made,
1800s.
excuse me, who made the decision originally to purchase Lambert Airport?
I'm sure that I cannot put that in my head at this moment, and I just read it this morning. But right now, you kind of took me off my path.
That's all right.
And,
The interesting point I'm trying to make is that was the city went to the voters to make that decision. They actually voted to take a $2 million bond in 1928, I believe, to purchase Lambert Airport from General Lambert. So I think that's an interesting point to make when we're talking about today, actually going back to the citizens to take a vote whether to sell it or not.
Thank
We're
you.
not
We
selling.
appreciate that. We're not selling the airport, sir. It's against the law. I want to thank you thank everybody on my behalf.
I want to thank everybody. We are run out of time. They need this space. They're going to prepare for something else. 12 o'clock is our, so we're winding it up. Thank you for coming out. I hope that all of you had a good, informative meeting here. Stay tuned. There's more to come.
Please stay vigilant on the process.